Hi, welcome to the Gastroenteritis Blues. My name is Steve Lippman, joined as always by Emily Cannell and the return of Dan Volpone. Dan, need to start this off by just getting there's fucking nothing to talk about, but we're going to start this off by getting some assorted thoughts from you because we have not talked to you since the season's end here. Now, number one, we have in general been Doc centrists on this podcast, Doc Rivers centrist, given that he's like a fine coach, doesn't matter all that much in the grand scheme of things. By the end of the year, Emily and I have talked about just get him off the team and away from us, emotionally, physically. I can't stand him anymore. I need him the fuck out of the city, personally. Are you at that place now as well, or I can elongate this question, but are you at that place now with Doc, or are you still basically where you were at with Doc?
I'm basically at the same spot. I mean, I think, friend of the pod, Mike O'Connor, wrote a very good thing the other day, which is basically like, yeah, like Doc has kind of conducted himself like an ass in the media, and Doc is, not any genius of a coach, but he's also probably an average coach. And, a lot of the things that people really care about are probably a bit less important, like how he conducts himself towards the media, probably not that important. How he, handles his rotations, while it is terrible a lot of times, probably less important than the X's and O's. And, Mike was like, his X's and O's are fairly simple, but they like fit the best players well. And, he does deserve credit that Joel's had his best 2 seasons under Doc. Like he does deserve credit that, Tobias's best moments as a Sixer have been under Doc. Now, if they fire Doc tomorrow and brought in Quin Snyder, which I'm sure we'll touch on later, I will be thrilled. And I don't think that, Doc is like some coach who you'd have a hard time to improve on. And, just as the way he is, I wouldn't be, sad to see him go. But I do think that, he's not what's holding them back. And I would be perfectly happy to see him go, just like everyone else. But I'm still pretty firm in the camp of he's not the issue.
James Harden, obviously very excited when we traded Simmons for him. And then game 6 looked like he could not possibly give a shit about playing in it. Where are you at? I'm sure that you're probably assuming, like most of us, that he's going to be back. Where are you at in terms of his contract and how you feel about him going forward as a Sixer?
Yeah, like I feel like to fully answer this confidently, I would need some information I'm not privy to. I mean, I watch him play and I say, like, this is a guy who's hurt. This is a guy whose hamstring is not right, and we know he has the hamstring injury in his past. And so if the thought in the organization and further doctors is that, summer is going to make him, get a lot closer to what he was, and give him some burst and be the scorer he used to be, then I would be all over bringing him back, especially at, whatever that price tag is, 30, 35 million, where you're able to, if you can get off of Tobias, free up cap space for a third star, or fourth if Maxey takes a step forward. But with, from him, I don't think that is anything close to guaranteed, right? Like I would not be surprised at all if this, like, yeah, this is just what he is. And so I think that if this is, just what he is, then it's a lot tougher of a decision for the organization. I'm not saying he didn't give us anything good, because he did, but I mean, his efficiency was just like below dirt. And you can't have that from a guy who's going to be making in the 40s of millions of dollars. And, like I said, this is not information that we are privy to. And if the thought of the organization is, there is better ahead of him, he will be healthier, then I would be in a rush to re-sign him, especially if you can get him at a price where you can, like I said, try to go after a third star. But if what we saw this season from him is what you get, then I would have a lot of thinking to do. And I'd be thinking about like, what can I do to, get off, like if I have to get off this player, can I get an asset for him? And if I can I go and chase, one of Beal / Levine, and then also really try to fill out the roster with some good role players who maybe like give a shit a little bit. And so like all of these things are something you have to weigh if Harden's, true peak health, which I just don't.
Yeah. This week, the Brooklyn Nets officially deferred the Sixers pick 23 in this year's draft. So we will have a draft pick. At least the Sixers will have the option to either make the pick. They will have to they can't trade the pick ahead of time. So because they traded because they traded next year's, or because they will trade next year's now that it was deferred. Getting into draft stuff. I'm not a big college basketball person. Emily, do you have any thoughts on people they could draft? Anybody from Delaware you're currently honing in on? Any thoughts here? Or do you think that they're going to trade the pick? Any thoughts on this?
I don't have any thoughts on that at all.
I feel sad that they're going to put the guy in the hat. And then if they trade them, the guy's going to have to be in the hat. And then, like, their mom might
work. His mom also worked for the team. Yeah.
That's the eternal question does their mom or dad work for the team?
And the only person from Delaware that I even know is Jameer Nelson Jr., which would also be sad if they then drafted him. And then I don't think he declared for the draft or anything, but
his dad does work
him. Exactly. So that would fit into the plans.
That does fit.
Give him a year. We'll do it next year. It's fine.
Yeah. Names that are out there. I don't know any of these guys really, other than what I'm reading. But EJ Liddell, Tari Eason is someone everybody loves, but says it's going to be gone. Dan, I feel like you get somewhat into college basketball. Shaking his head. I'm going to throw this to you. What do you think about guys who might be around for 23, or do you think they're likely going to trade the pick? Maybe with a Tobias or in a Matisse situation, or what do you think?
Yeah, I believe the rule is that they can't like officially trade the pick before they make it, but they can come to some kind of agreement to trade it, draft the player, the team they're trading it to once, and then trade the rights to that player.
Right.
And I kind of have a feeling that we might see something like that because I think the big plan is to get off of Tobias, maybe use Matisse in this pick to do it, and hopefully free up some cap space to sign a player that would be an extra star on this team. And I've honestly I haven't been on this pod in a while, and I've tried to think about the Sixers as little as possible. I'm sure this is still the plan. I haven't heard anything to suggest that it's likely that any of these free agent stars want to come here, or that Donovan Mitchell is asking out and the Jazz are dying for anything the Sixers have to offer. I haven't heard anything to say that anything like that is going to happen, but I think that is probably the overarching plan here, and it probably is the best bet to keep Harden and try to get someone else and have Maxey and have this great 4 out of 5 players. But all the talk, and I think is right, is people are saying you need dogs, and I will go lower than that and say you need players. You need players who care, and I don't mean to suggest that the guys don't care ever on this team, but they don't care as often and as intensely as they should compared to other players in the league. That is just the truth. And it is the sad truth about this team because we care about them so much. When you hear Tobias Harris in his post-game interview say the effort wasn't there, in a home game 6 to force game 7.
Unreal.
That is as low as it gets in terms of effort for an organization. If you can't get up for this game, what can you get up for? And so they need players, whether that is a rookie who is going to, compete against some of these vets for minutes and push them, or if that is, a PJ Tucker veteran who has made his place in the league by trying hard and will continue to chase this, elusive ring for him. Whatever it is, they need players who just care more than the players they have now. And I think that's a hard thing to get out of a rookie because the rookies generally need to be brought up in a certain culture. And if you're at 23, you're probably not getting a day one contributor who is also going to be a culture setter. I mean, that's just kind of a silly expectation. And so I would not be upset to see them trade the pick for, I don't know who, but someone to set a certain culture on this team. I mean, they missed the Jimmy of it all, not just that he played phenomenal in these playoffs and actually would take a three, but that, his annoying, look how hard I'm trying thing. I've made fun of it. I've made fun of Giannis for doing it, but the Sixers need someone who is just going to be I'm trying hard, meet me here. They don't have it. And I admire Embiid for playing through the injuries he played through, but he's still not that guy. And I'm not saying he was just not caring out there and not trying at all, but he is not the culture, effort, threshold setter that this team really needs. They don't have anyone to do it. And so that has to be a big concern this summer. And I hope that Daryl has the interpersonal, emotional intelligence to recognize that this is a need beyond whatever fucking Vorp says.
Well, and Harden's the fucking opposite of that. Harden, even when Harden makes all his shots, he's not exactly Mr. Try-hard guy. He's, as I love Harden, I think Harden's great, and for his career, I've been a big fan of his, but he's never been all-out effort guy. So Maxey is a big effort guy, and in the waning moments of Game 6, he was one of the few people really trying. And Embiid's injury history, honestly, for me, is I don't want him diving as much as he dives. I don't want him to be, that kind of guy. So they need guys with higher motors on this team, and they need people to set the tone. I also think that Doc Rivers, being such an apathetic, accountability devoid asshole, doesn't help in this regard. And refusing to take any blame ever, never practicing, never seeming inclined to play people. Honestly, Paul Reed. Paul Reed is a maniac and rebounds like crazy and is he fouls a lot out of over effort, trying too hard to play well.
Well, DeAndre Jordan was afraid to break a sweat all year in his dots.
DeAndre Jordan, absolute zero effort model. So we're going to take a little break here. This is a quick one. Take a little break. Talk about, speaking of models, we're going to talk about Quin Snyder, who stepping down, and then we'll talk about, I'm just speaking of models, Al Horford. Here's a break. We're back. Quin Snyder has stepped down as head coach of the Utah Jazz. Now, we will continue to take every last coaching bit of news as a clue that Doc Rivers will no longer coach the Sixers until it's literally opening night of the season. I don't really see a path here. I would love to see a path here. Now, it's funny. Quin Snyder coaches a bunch of Jazz teams that are all number one seed and they never fucking do anything, but everybody's he's an incredible coach. I'm a little curious about that, why his teams are always win 60 games and they always fail. But people never blame him. I think that's a little curious. Now, I guess they do have a flawed roster, but I think it's a little funny that he comes off scot-free. But sure, I would absolutely take him over Doc. Obviously, there's no trade there. I don't think you could pay Doc enough money to go to Utah. But this would have to be the Sixers firing Doc, which I don't think they're going to do. I think they would have done that by now. unless they just are over the moon about Quin Snyder. I really don't expect this, but he's certainly a big name and accomplished coach to hit the market at this point. Emily, any thoughts on Quin Snyder hitting the market here?
Yeah, I don't really see a path for him to come to the Sixers. And I also wonder, like, is he stepping down because he just like wants some time away from coaching, or is he like looking to pick up a job right away? Like, we don't know that, but yeah, we've said it a million times. The only way we're getting off of Doc's leaving if Doc resigns, and he's not going to resign for the snowy mountain caps of Salt Lake City, where there's no golf to be played in the months of October to April. So
right. Shout out Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, just in case.
Great franchise.
Have you seen it?
Yeah, of course I have.
Great. Miriam Cosby running a cult. Great.
Just ask Emily if she's seen a reality TV show. Come on.
Yeah, so that's good stuff. Yeah, Dan, any thoughts on this Quin Snyder situation?
Yeah, I mean, I get your point about like, why doesn't he get much blame from this? I think part of it is that, it's a small market and people don't really care and would rather blame the players. I mean, I make the same point about Daryl all the time. And so if that continued here, maybe it would drive me crazy. Who knows? But I think that more than like, I think Doc is a fine coach. I do. But I also think that sometimes like it's just time for a new voice. And it's just time for a change. And Quin Snyder is probably the most proven coach out there. Like him, or like if you could lure D'Antoni away, something like that, which we know they're not doing with D'Antoni, and they're probably not doing with Snyder. I mean, Paul has, reported this, and people have tried to basically cope. Sorry, I don't know how else to say it. Yeah. It's like, oh, the Sixers are playing hardball with the Lakers. No, like Paul said it, other reporters have said it, like Daryl and ownership like Doc. Like people project onto Daryl so much, like, oh, Daryl thinks what I think. No, Daryl thinks what Daryl thinks, and Daryl likes Doc, as does the organization. Like, that's just how it is. And yeah, I'm like probably higher on Doc than most people on Sixers Twitter, and I'm also probably lower on Doc than anyone in the Sixers organization, because he drives me crazy too, just like less so than everyone else. But yeah, I mean, if like they decided to ditch Doc and go with Snyder, I'd be thrilled. I just don't think it's going to happen. And like, yeah, it's probably time for a fresh voice, but I don't think anyone feels that way in the organization. Like, I truly think Doc is here for the next year, like at least. I think they're happy with what he's done. Like I'm not particularly, but I like I do get that, like there's some positive from him, and I think that they're happy with him.
Yeah, I think in Liberty Ballers Slack the other day, our friend Dave Early brought up that just the notion that he's likely not Daryl's first choice. I totally believe that he's not Daryl's first choice. I guess I just think that while he's not Daryl's first choice, I do think that Daryl likes him way more than fans, including me, would like to believe. Because I do in general like Daryl and think Daryl's very smart and good overall. But I do think fans like to think that Daryl thinks the way that we think. And he's been chained and bound by Josh Harris and not allowed to fire him. And I really think that if Daryl really wanted Doc out, he could get him out. He could whisper in Joel's ear, like, hey, pull the plug on this guy. Like, he's a fucking moron. Like,
I also think, I think that there is some, notion that Doc's decisions that people don't like, including me, that I don't like, are like, that's only Doc. But I do think part of like the reporting of like Daryl really likes Doc has some implication of like Daryl gets Doc's ear on a lot of decisions. And like, I get that makes people uncomfortable because Daryl was supposed to be some kind of savior and Daryl was supposed to be some kind of genius that is going to steer us in the right direction. But like, as I'm sure we'll touch on later, like Danny Green or Al Horford, who would you rather have right now? Right? Like, we could go on and on, but like Daryl is not perfect. Daryl's not been perfect his whole career. I think he's a good GM. I do. I think we're lucky to have him. But the idea that he can't make a mistake and that if there's a mistake made, it has to be only attributed to Doc. Now, it's coaching. Doc does get the final say, and so Doc should totally get blamed. But like the idea that Daryl really likes him kind of implies that like he has Doc's ear. Like Doc is listening to things he says, and like, you know, Doc does ultimately answer to Daryl. Daryl is the president of basketball operations, and so like everything he does generally gets Daryl's stamp of approval. And like, I get that people don't like that, but that doesn't make it any less true. Like, this is your guy, and this was your, you know, savior of the Sixers, and this was your, you know, our hinky-minded guy that we're getting back. But ultimately, everyone makes mistakes, and Doc's mistakes do owe a bit to Daryl, because like Daryl is in charge, and Daryl is giving Doc this approval. Like I don't know how else to say it, but like I think if Daryl was like, this is a make or break issue, DeAndre Jordan probably gets minutes a lot less closer to the end of the regular season.
Yeah, or Daryl, don't sign horrible players. Like if
well,
Doc
that's right.
says
Like Doc didn't sign DeAndre Jordan. Daryl signed DeAndre Jordan. Daryl included Paul Millsap in that trade. No one forced these things.
Those guys have been horrible for years. Just if Doc says I want those guys, you say actually no. There's all this tape and data.
Sorry, the Nets refused to give Millsap. Sorry, Doc.
Yeah, so yeah, it's, you know, distract him with something. I don't know. Like, you're the GM. You can figure something out. So you mentioned Horford. The finals are happening now. We're recording this in the evening on Sunday, so we won't talk too much about the series overall. But Al Horford hit like 6 threes. So after he left the Sixers, he went to OKC. He was horrible there. And then he found his way back to Boston, and he's been very good for them this year, and is having a real renaissance with Boston, as we could have all really predicted. He looks very spry. He's hitting a lot of threes. He's defending. His isolation defending is like best in the league. Now, I've been seeing some revisionist history on Al Horford's Sixers tenure, which, if you'll remember, was horrible. It was just absolutely joyless and miserable. So spare me with that shit, please. Like, he was not good for us. Like, he was good as a backup center, but he was not good in the starting lineup playing next to the most important player in the city. So I just don't want to hear any, like, should we have traded Al Horford? Yeah, we had to. Like, Embiid was miserable when Horford was here. They had to get him out of here. Danny Green was an important player on the team. Like, sure, we haven't won a title, but we weren't going to win a title with Al fucking Horford. Like, yes, we had like 5 power forwards on the team, and Josh Richardson that year was a hellscape, and like nobody could shoot the ball. It was not set up for Al to succeed, but also he seemed like a bummer to be around on those teams. Like, none of it went well. He would not shoot quickly. Like, none of it was good, but also he was not good in those lineups. Like, I don't want to like look back on this and be like, oh, this is the guy we had the whole time. Like, he was not like this, especially next to Joel. And also, the same thing
is the Jimmy years.
Yeah, exactly. No, and Jimmy was not those years either. No, we should have kept Jimmy in that case. But like, I don't want to hear this like, look, what did the Sixers, look at this, another bad Sixers move. Like, that was actually a good move by Daryl to get off of Horford at that time. So, Emily, do you agree with this, or are you at all pining for more like Al Horford in your life at this point?
No, I want less Al Horford in my life at this point in time. I want him off my television screen. Yeah. Like, as a Sixer, he made 6 threes in game 1. Like, he only took 6 threes one time for the Sixers. Like, and that was his first game as a Sixer. Like, he's never shot like that. I thought James Harden was like a sandbagger on teams he didn't want to be on. I think Al Horford is the ultimate sandbagger. He did it here, then he did it in Oklahoma to get back to Boston.
Right.
Like, this was like a 3-year master plan. Like, this is, I don't know what this is, but this is not the guy that played for the Sixers or OKC. Like, he's like taking some magic potion and like unaging himself. But all that being said, I still think the Warriors win the series.
I hope so. I can't stand a Celtics Horford title. I can't do it.
And a Nick Stauskas title. He is currently on the Celtics.
That is a shame. But sorry, man. You got to go find one someplace else. Dan, any thoughts on this Horford stuff?
I will say, I think I was one of the few people who, from a Sixers perspective, did not love the Danny Green trade. He was really important his first year here. But it's like the dude's 35 and like he's like a 3-point specialist who shoots threes well like once every 3 games. Like I don't know, like I didn't love it. And I don't disagree that we had to get off of Horford, but to give a first just to get a guy who's like kind of and like Horford definitely still had some value. Like I think it's pretty clear that like right now no one's.
Oh, I didn't think he had it. They benched him. They had to bench a $30 million player that year.
The Thunder?
No, Horford. Like the Sixers had to put him on the bench.
They brought him off the bench for lineup purposes. I'm not saying that he should have stayed a Sixer, but I just wasn't. I don't think that like Darryl got a ton of credit for that deal. Whereas like Darryl's making the roster make sense. And it's like, well, you traded a first round pick to get off of a guy who was like a highly sought after free agent just a year ago to get Danny Green making $15 million at 34 years old. Like, I didn't think that this was some genius deal. Like Danny Green has his own issues. And I mean, we're kind of seeing like, yes, they did get the 1 seed and they had an impressive regular season a year ago. Like Darryl hasn't shaped up some like top tier contender, let alone a winner. Just like the Sixers still haven't gotten out of the second round. Like Darryl hasn't worked any magic here. Like, I don't fully get like all of the praise that he gets for some of these moves. And I'm not saying that we should have to keep Horford or anything. And I absolutely hate seeing him being at 1-0 in the NBA Finals. I mean, not just him. I mean, more like he's whatever. He was a bummer here. His sister hates us and is just the worst on Twitter. But just the more than anything, the Celtics in general, and I like a lot of it. Like I actually really like Tatum. Like I like his game. I like watching him play. They have some role players who I find enjoyable. It's not about like these guys individually. It's a Sixers Celtics thing. You know, I hate the Celtics. You know, I've always hated the Celtics. This isn't new now that they're playing well. You know, what were they, 23 and 24 at one point, and now they're in the NBA Finals. It's just unbelievable. I was relishing in them being bad, and now they're phenomenal. Yeah, I mean, if the Warriors don't turn around and win, I'm going to be really bummed. I hope they do. I think the series goes 7 either way. I think it'll be really close. They're both great teams, so we'll see. But it's definitely it's not fun to see. It's not fun to see the Celtics really look like far and away, you know, the best team in the Eastern Conference right now. It's not enjoyable. And I have to give them credit because I did put down a $5 parlay and win $250 on a Celtics bet in the conference finals, and that was greatly appreciated. But besides that, I'm really not enjoying the run at all.
Wow. Well, you bet on the Celtics.
I did. You want to hear what the bet was?
I absolutely do.
It was a 5-leg parlay. This was game, I want to say 2 of the conference finals. The Heat were at 1-0 in Miami. I took alternate spread, Celtics minus 15.5. The Heat were 1-point favorites. I took the Celtics to win by 16 or more. They did. I took Grant Williams over 7.5 points. I think he had 19. Marcus Smart 4+ rebounds. I think he had 9. Jason Tatum 2+ threes. I think he had 4. And then Al Horford to have 1+ blocks. He got his 1 block on a blocked forced jumper with 6 minutes left in the game right before the Celtics pulled the starters.
It's like uncut gems.
Yeah, that was $5 to win $251.23.
Nice.
And that was my biggest odds hit yet. So the Celtics deserve credit for that, but I hope they have no luck the rest of the way. I'm not betting on them again.
Wow. Very good stuff. Last question. I know we have to go. Emily, your favorite Real Housewives of Salt Lake City husband?
Oh, my favorite husband.
Mm-hmm.
Can I say Coach Shaw? I like Coach Shaw a lot.
Of course. Gotta go Robert Sr. for me. Gotta go. You know, anybody that marries their own granddaughter is really just, you know, it's gotta be good stuff.
The grandmother told him to do it when her dying wish.
Okay, how can you possibly not? You know, somebody.
Step-grandfather.
Listen, somebody who's actively dying is definitely in a clear headspace. So you have to do whatever they say. It's great. All right. Definitely want to plug that show. Dan, great to see you. Next week, we have to do a draft podcast. I mean, not that we need to do more than we did today. It seemed like we really gave you all you need to know about the upcoming draft. But
we are your premier draft expert.
we are.
So we're known as.
We don't need Olinger or Harrison or any of those guys. I think we really covered it all. Follow Gastro Blues Pod. Third and Girl, D.A. Peltz 13. Where is he? Nobody knows. Steve J. Littman, the Gastro Blues Pod, a Sixers podcast. That's it. Be safe and be great. And take care. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.